Now, how many of you are looking for new hunting land this year? A lot of people are, and a lot of people are just looking at trading up. It's not that you're really looking like, have to find new ground. You already have some places that you're comfortable hunting. You want to find better. This is a good way to find better ground, new ground, whatever way you look at it. And we'll even talk about buying here in the end. But there's a lot of ways that it's early right now for you to make sure you have a great hunt next year. We're going to talk about some of the tricks that we've used to find new land and make sure we have a good place to hunt. And let's talk about public land. Now, I think a lot of people look at it like, public land is attainable to everyone, good public land hunting, and it is. But it's a lot harder than you think. I'll bring up, we have some rules for this too, but I'm going to point out right off the bat, are you a hiker or a hunter? There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time. I put in 8 miles last weekend. You're looking for a spot to hunt. Deer in October. You need to be hunting, my friend. You're not really learning much other than you're scouting, you're walking, you're learning how to hike. And so we have some rules to follow. And when you're talking about public land, I do not like, I almost take offense when people say public land hunting is overrun, can't find a new place to hunt, the Orange Army. That means you're doing it wrong. I'll tell you that right now. You're doing it wrong. Because I hunt a spot in Pennsylvania that I love hunting. And I've hunted there about 20 seasons since 1993. I rarely see another hunter during opening day. Maybe one orange hat that walks by on average opening day that I see in a distance. You just don't see a lot of hunters. Last time I was there, I hunted for 2.5 days and saw one hunter. And we covered some ground too, because we were still hunting, looking off benches. Saw a couple bucks, just not legal. That was actually 2 times ago hunting. The last time I went, shot a nice one. But anyways, that was the second day of the hunt too. There's always a spot to find where there's not a lot of hunters. If you are in a spot where there's a lot of hunters, you're doing it wrong. There's just no way around that, unfortunately. I know Dylan, some of his tricks of the trade are looking for large chunks. Obviously, if you have large chunks, even if you have quite a few hunters, then you're going to be able to find some dead spots in there where there's not a lot of hunters. But I would take it a step further, and Dylan does too. You're taking those large chunks, you're looking for areas that don't have roads, large sections. I'm a big fan of having public land that's inaccessible by the average person that doesn't want to walk or can't. I don't believe that public land should be accessed by road for everybody, because then it doesn't make special public land. There should be a separation. What I find in Pennsylvania, like the area I hunt is 3 by 10 miles, a road on 2 sides, a reservoir on the other 2 sides. What you find is it separates hunters. The hunters that want to go way back in, they go way back in. The hunters that want to stay closer to the road, they stay close to the road. Yeah, there's more people close to the road, but it still separates people because you have that option. You're not saying, well, we're going to bisect that with 5 county roads. Now you're going to have people spread evenly everywhere and you can't find that remote area. It's nice to have remote areas that produces higher buck age structure, protected populations of game. It's one way to protect our natural resources, so there's always game and good game somewhere. Put roads in there, you might limit yourself. So always make sure you're staying away from roads. I look for large blocks of timber. Also look for areas that are hemmed off by private land, meaning you can't get in because there's a large portion of private land either stripped along the road with small parcels or big chunks of private land, and you're finding a way to get around those. People say, well, that's unfair. They have that private land right next to public and they won't let anyone get back there. That's a good thing, because again, it creates that remote area that you can count on not a lot of hunters being. So I look for large chunks with long lines of private land, no roads, so that I can find a way to work hard and get behind that private land. Now you have an assemblage of evening, afternoon stands too. You hunt closer to the houses and private land for afternoon, evening. You hunt further away for morning, where a buck might bed further away from those food sources that are on that private land. Now you have an assemblage of morning and evening stands. It's a pretty cool thing. Look at the 2-hour rule when you're looking at these areas. Get at least 2 hours away from your house. A lot of people keep beating that public land that's 45 minutes away, an hour away, hour and a half away, over and over and over again, and complain about the number of hunters, where if they just went a half hour more, 45 minutes more, they'll find more remote, unpressured acres. Another thing too is look at the 50-mile rule. Talk about ag, large parcels, depth of cover. That gives you a lot of depth where you're not running into another road away from a major food source or private land. Think of the 50-mile rule too. The 50 miles away from any metropolitan area. So you might be looking at an area that's an hour and a half away from your house, but that puts you within 20 miles of a major metropolitan area. I'd go the opposite direction. Get away from those large metropolitan areas. I know areas around here, if you're within 25, 30 miles of La Crosse, you're probably going to have a lot of people on that public land. But once you get outside that boundary and you're not getting closer to Rochester, you're not getting closer to the Twin Cities, but you're starting to get out in that area, it's more inconvenient for people. It's more inconvenient. They don't find as many hotels, motels. You have to drive a little bit further in the morning. Typically, you don't have a place to stay. People want to go out and stay. And so start looking at getting at least 50 miles away from metropolitan area, get at least 2 hours away from your house. Consider that within 2 hours that you're going to look in that target. And if you're like Dylan, how far is South Dakota away from your house?
8 hours on the nose.
And
8 hours.
In 8 hours. And how many days did you hunt this year and you got your whitetail?
Usually it's a 3 day 3 days of hunting trip, or 3.5 days of hunting.
So how many trips for whitetail did you do this year?
I did 2 trips.
So in about 5-6 days of hunting, 5 days?
5 days, yeah.
You got your whitetail. And so what you're looking for is sometimes you spend a little more time driving, but that means that you get into a better piece of land that you can expect to shoot something and have less pressure in a shorter period of time. And so you have a little bit more drive time than hunt time, but that kind of matches in with if you want to find success. So there's a lot of public land hunters out there right now that are more aware. I'm going to repeat this a lot. There's a lot of people hiking and putting miles on and bragging about it and bringing big backpacks back and going way back in and
taking
posting
cool pictures of rubs.
Yeah, look what I found. When they're not really shooting anything. Those are called hikers, folks. And I'm not saying if you don't shoot anything, you're not a hunter. What I am saying is that people are doing it wrong. Again, if you're finding lots of pressure, if you're finding lots of hunters, if you're doing this for decades and not shooting any deer, then you're doing more hiking than hunting. And I want to help you be successful. That's the whole purpose of this channel. Do not scout in the field first, meaning here's a chunk of land we're going to. Let's get out there and scout it. No. Doing it all wrong. Think of a 1-to-1 ratio. 1-to-1 ratio meaning you're looking at an aerial photo about the same amount of time that you're hunting in the field. Hunting meaning you're spending time in an aerial photo. Let's say you spend 8 to 10 hours looking over aerial photos with a given public land. You narrow it down to 5, 6, 7 spots. Always have multiple spots. Because multiple spots like that, you can spend 8 hours on an aerial, you can really narrow it down to exactly where you want to go out of 5,000 acres, 10,000 acres. That might be a piece of a 100,000 acre chunk. But you're looking at these areas spread out. Then you're going in specifically to that area. You're taking about 2 hours to do so. You go in, check it out, get out. Well, in a long day on a Saturday, you can check out 4 areas, 5 areas, and know where you want to hunt. You might go into the first area and you just stay there and hunt, but you're going into very precise areas, meaning you're hunting this funnel, this transition, this edge of a clear cut, this edge of a swamp, this change of habitat, and literally you're marking a spot that we could make this. Dylan, we'll add another rule here, and this is something I look at. I could probably call it a 50-yard rule, but let's give people a little bit more gray area. What do you think about a 100-yard rule? That you should be able to narrow it down within 100 yards of where you're going to put your tree stand on a public land map the majority of the time.
Absolutely.
There's a 100-yard rule.
Yep, love that. Yep.
So a 100-yard rule, if you're looking at it like you're going to go into this area and within a half mile you're going to find a stand location to put, you're doing it wrong. Again, find these very specific areas. When I hunted out in Pennsylvania, first thing I did, I have topo maps that were the big topo maps. I carbon copied, so it was a small area, it was about a 4x4 card that I laminated and carried in my pocket. And then I X'd out certain areas within that map that were saddles and benches that came together, and I went to those specific areas within 100 yards and found a stand. I've done that since the early 90s. You can be a lot more precise. And so you can do most of the scouting. Again, that 1-to-1 rule, the 100-yard rule. You're looking at an area on a map on public land and you're going directly to that area and you're spending just as much time on the air as you are on the ground. That means you're doing it efficiently. If you say you walked all day, you're doing it wrong. Unless it was all day, meaning a stand, then you're going to walk over here and you're going to hunt this. A lot of times what I was doing is I was hunting a morning, getting into a spot, saying, well, I'm just going to go sit here. Or I'm going in the afternoon, even better, finding this spot. Yeah, I feel comfortable with this. I'm going to go move over here maybe midday tomorrow, but I'm going to hunt here in the morning because it looks pretty good. You're spending a lot more time hunting than you are hiking. Very, very important that you're actually hunting when you're doing this, because then that's going to put game at your feet. And to me, you're going to learn the deer movements, you're going to learn the wildlife movement, how they're actually relating to the land, as opposed to you just making an assumption and walking, finding it, and putting some cool pictures on social media. So public land, I think it's a lot easier and a lot more, and you can be a lot more successful with it. And notice without on any of this, we're not going to mention 200-inch deer, 150-inch deer. I'm making that assumption that you're finding the area because you like that area, you like the terrain, you like the habitat, and then you'll take what deer are there. Because not everyone has the ability to travel 10 hours. There's people out there that will only leave their house if they can find a 200-inch deer. That's ridiculous, folks. And what that means is they want to go to an area where someone's saying, hey, we have this big buck that you can come sit on a stand because you're XYZ celebrity and you can shoot it. And then you pat yourself on the back that you shot a 200-incher when really you did zero work to get that. Because if you're actually going out and looking for a mature whitetail on public land and shooting it, that's an accomplishment. No matter what his genetics allow him to score, no matter what the soil allows him to score. So you get a 4 or 5-year-old buck anywhere, 3-year-old buck on public land in most locations, that's an accomplishment regardless of the score. Number 2, begin early. Winter is an outstanding time to scout, especially right after the season ends. Some places, I have a friend of mine, Carl, over in Connecticut. He was sending pictures of him cutting timber and clearing a food plot last week. We have 15 degrees, 30 degrees here, and a bunch of snow. And he's over there in a t-shirt clearing out a new food plot, no snow on the ground. What an outstanding time to scout public land right after the season begins. A sign from the season is very evident, not where they actually wintered. That can produce a lot of pellets, a lot of beds, a lot of hair, and it makes it look like deer were there all season long when they're only there during the winter because that's where they are. Very deceiving because you go back there and hunt during the fall and you quickly realize this is not where the deer are at during the fall. So really great time to scout, begin early. And number 3, Dylan brought up a great point right here. And I said begin early, coffee clutch time. So let's say you're meeting these people. Great time to, yeah, I'm a hunter, I'm in the area, I'm trying to find some hunting land, and any of you have a place to turkey hunt? People are a lot less likely to be put off by you wanting to turkey hunt in the spring on their land than wanting to deer hunt with guns and weapons, bows that could kill a deer, and really getting out at that time. It's a little bit more, I would say, intimidating. You're showing up with hunting clothes and guns and weapons, want to go out and kill some deer. Or turkey hunting. A turkey hunt is a gateway hunt, meaning that people that don't hunt or haven't been exposed to hunting, they don't mind shooting a turkey in the face. Let them go shoot a squirrel, a rabbit, something with pretty brown eyes. It's not really, sometimes, not for everybody, that you're trying to get into hunting for the first time. And that's the same, that turkey applies to a lot of, you want to shoot some turkeys? Feel free, they're all over the place. A lot easier, and then you can scout while you're there, while you're turkey hunting. That's one thing, you're mobile turkey hunting. A lot of times when I'm turkey hunting, because I love whitetails, I'm trying to think, yeah, I wonder where the deer come out right here, if they come out over this little saddle, or is there a deer trail over there? Is that an old rub over there? Antlers, you might be looking for sheds at that time of the year, but turkey hunting's great, it's early. And Dylan a lot of times finds out those great places to hunt on private land by knocking on doors. Let alone if he public land hunts turkey too, so it's great for scouting the off-season. When I say coffee clutch here, you're going in at coffee clutch time. Now, if you went in September, you went into the local diner where retired farmers and old dudes are sitting around drinking coffee at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. There's certain times that they're going to be there every day. And if you're up at the little bar there and you're drinking some coffee and you turn around, they're going to say something. They're going to not recognize you and they're going to say, hey, what are you doing in the area? Then you're going to say, looking for some hunting land. And they're going to say, you're going to buy? You got money? And then you say, no, just trying to find a new place to hunt. I turkey hunt and deer hunting, do a little deer hunting too. And then when you strike up a natural conversation with them. It's not like knocking on their door. Right away they're off-putting a little bit when you knock on the door. But coffee clutches, they're around their friends. They're going to be probably more vocal than they would at home. And it's a great way to strike up a conversation in any local town anywhere. And again, you're doing that early, and turkey hunting can be that great first step like Dylan was recommending. Not posting on Facebook. Everybody's posting on Facebook asking for, hey, looking for a new spot to hunt, Lower Michigan. Willing to pay some money. Looking for a great whitetail parcel. It's kind of funny, actually. Comical, isn't it?
I think it's funny. Like, you see the post now, and now people actually just do like the laugh react on it, and it'll say like 15 laugh reacts on that post. Cause
yeah.
It's like, yeah, buddy.
Yeah, good luck.
We're all looking, dude.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, Facebook. Yeah, it's kind of funny. So that's not a good place. Let's put it that way. Again, those personal connections, whatever it might be, stop at the local ag store, buy some seed, buy something. Know that you can go in there, strike up a conversation with feed and seed people that are working there. Something natural again. It's okay for you to go in and buy $20 worth of bird seed and strike up a conversation and say, yeah, I'm just in the area, I'm hoping to find some hunting land. See what people say. Maybe they say nothing. Move on to the local diner. But that's even a lot better. That to me is the first step as opposed to knocking on doors even. Leasing company. Now, we first found our property in Wisconsin that we first hunted in 2002 through a leasing company. It worked really well. At that time, there wasn't as much demand. We had 3 really nice parcels to look at that day, and we chose what we thought was the best and then went from there. The rest is history. That was a long time ago, it seems. Some people have had not so good luck. Dylan, you've paid $200 for premium membership for a year at a certain company and
got nothing.
And got nothing, meaning that, depending on in the last 3 years, I would say 4 years, it's been really competitive for those parcels, for leasing parcels. So like Dylan was saying, a new one comes, even if it does come, it's gone. And a lot of times, and you look at it this way, if some of those companies have clients that lease from them continuously and they know that they're going to pay, they pay up front, they're going to buy it right now, make a decision, which brings us down to for buying land, then it might be more likely that they contact someone and say, hey, this is just about to go out, but do you want it? And that's just the way the world works, unfortunately. But when you have a good relationship with one and somebody and establish good rapport. So leasing companies can be really hit or miss. I have more experience in the past. I have experience with it maybe 5-6 years ago through friends that did okay, but it was really hit or miss even then, and then it's a little bit even harder now. Number 6, go buy some land. And this is a tough one. I've bought land. My first piece I purchased was in 1995. Had to scrape funds together. You know what? I own that small parcel. It's around 36.25 acres along the Cass River off Severance Road near Cass City, Michigan. I owned that parcel before I owned a house. Literally, owned it before I owned a house because I thought that was important. We buy some hunting land, and we did, and actually turned it over, moved to the UP, made some money, bought some houses in between that we lived in just for 6 months and flipped and worked and tried to make 10,000 on them, and we did. Move on to the next one. It was kind of like we were in flux and moving, but at the same time, it was building towards bigger and better things. And I found you can't make a lot of money a lot of times on real estate unless you sell it. Obviously. You're not getting dividend checks once a month, typically, unless it's big rent ag, and not a lot of us can afford to buy that. Or income producing properties, rentals, things like that. So what I find that people make a mistake with private land is I'll hear someone say, we looked for 3 years before we found this piece. We looked for 10 years. We looked for 5 years. Look for 2. I say be a more serious buyer. And what I mean by that is consider your local real estate agent. Let's say you want to be in an area. And we use Chad Garteski with Weiss Realty over. He's huge, all the way up and down. Gordy Weiss, late Gordy Weiss, unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. But he established this giant real estate company along both sides of the Mississippi here in southeast, southwest, and western Wisconsin, eastern Minnesota. And they cover this entire area. And so imagine Chad, he has a buyer. And now Chad's a very patient man. He's very experienced. He's bought and sold a lot of these, had someone buy or sell these properties through him a lot around this area. But can you imagine someone like Chad where you have a buyer and he works with him for 3 years, over and over and over and over and over again, showing them properties only to not make a decision and not buy it because it's not the perfect piece. Folks, there's never going to be the perfect piece. I think people finally find the perfect piece because they finally realize there's no perfect piece. And this one feels the most comfortable with them after 3 or 4 years. Buy it soon. Pick 3 or 4 that are out there right now. And I know right now there's not a lot of inventory. There's becoming more and more inventory though. But bottom line is find what's out there. Don't limit yourself to a certain county because it sounds good. Look at the surrounding counties, look at multiple counties and make a decision and buy. Buy based on habitat change. If you're talking about great habitat to find, the habitat that has the lowest timber value is probably the best wildlife value. It doesn't matter if it's public land, private land. The habitat that has the most diversity is going to have the least amount of timber value, and it's going to have the most wildlife value. It's going to have a mix of shrubs, maybe even conifers, grasses, briars, weeds, hardwood regeneration, hardwoods. It's going to have that perfect mix. It might have bottomland, upland, highland, high rolling timber. When you find all that taking place in one spot, and that's where you can really narrow down some of these public land spots. Not only private land, but comparing one to another, For example, I'd rather have 40 acres that it was a true diversity parcel that met the rest of the criteria that I was going to hunt or buy than 80 acres of hardwoods that will take years to change, and I'll never change it to what that other diverse parcel is in a lifetime. So don't even hold yourself to a size when you're buying land. And then on public, you're looking for that diversity. And you can see that diversity. We use HuntWise. So use HuntWise. HuntWise can be your friend. In our Hunting Hills and Thermals web class that we just came out with, Dylan uses a lot of 3D imagery. We're going to show the lay of the land using HuntWise and rotating around so you can see the actual lay of the land, what those look like. Then you can really learn what a bench is, what a point is, what a saddle is, because you can flip those maps around and look at it and really understand that fully and how that lay of the land is. Use HuntWise. What's really nice with the aerial imagery, some of the other companies don't offer this, is they'll have 5 or 6 different maps that you can choose from with topo overlays on each one. So some of those will be older, some will be newer. A lot of times I like looking at some of those older ones because they'll actually have more contrast between shapes and colors. And what that means is you can tell if the timber is older, younger, conifer, hardwoods, swamps. You can see those mixes where you see a lot of colors, a lot of shapes coming into one area. That equals diversity. So again, this is a great time. We're starting early right now. Start early, maybe focus on turkey if you're looking for those private land. Consider the coffee clutch crowd. I'm not saying not knock on doors. Knocking on doors is a good thing too. But really going in a good time for this. You know, I know people that have gone knocking on doors in September, October, right, hoping to hunt that day. You know, try going down in March, April, because if you're really a passionate hunter, if you're really going to be that hardcore public land hunter, you're going to plan way ahead of time. You're going to understand what it takes to shoot a deer on public land. It doesn't take boot time. It takes being smart and making good whitetail decisions and observations of where those deer are going to move to within 100 yards. Consider going a little bit further, even if it means less hunting time, to find a good spot, and that means starting early. And you too can find a great place, another good place to hunt on public or private land for this fall. Hey, I'm really excited to introduce to you our Hills and Thermals web class. It's something we worked on all year. We're trying to put lots of facets of scouting, aerial imagery, diagrams on the whiteboard to really teach you how the wind moves through hills and how you should find bedding areas, how it relates to deer movements in general, how that relates to, this is a bedding area stand, this is a food source afternoon stand. We really tried to put this together and offer you a complete picture of how to navigate hills and find better success consistently where you hunt.